Arguably, the character that might have went through some of the biggest transitions and changes across the board for Bates Motel, and I'm excited to bring up the man himself, Dylan. Let's bring out Max Turrott to the program. Let me get off of here, give you guys the platform you deserve. Grab a mic. Oh, grab some lights. Holy crap. You're like an interrogation right here. So, welcome to HorrorHound Weekend. How has things been this weekend? Meeting the fans, talking with them from a wide different amount of roads. I'll throw it up to you first, Max.
Yeah, it's been great, man. I think, I speak for all of us when I say that we have a lot of fun coming to these things and just getting to meet all of you and talk about a show that not only you guys are passionate about, but also that was something that was really special to all of us, and we had a lot of fun being a part of. So, just excited, and thankful, happy to be here.
Very much, very much.
Well, I was just lucky enough to get on the show the last season, so because I was a fan. I mean, and like you said, you don't always get to work on a show where everybody's trying their best and really loving what they're doing. So, and the fans too.
Absolutely.
Pretty good.
Absolutely. You guys thank you. Yeah, you guys are awesome, and it's great to, it's usually as actors we perform in a vacuum unless you're in a theater, you get sort of the immediate response from an audience what they respond to, but on TV, you're working in a vacuum, and it airs usually 6 months later sometime, depending on the show. So to get the opportunity to talk to you guys and to see what you're responding to is really special, because we try to put our hearts into it, and we'd love to see what affects you and what doesn't affect you as much. And it's always great. Thank you, guys.
Real quick for the question for you guys, if you have questions, raise your hand. I'll get around, so please raise your hand. I'm excited as hell. This is tremendous. Rewatching the series, all 5 seasons in like a week, it's insane to see all the twists and turns that goes along with this. And to see the work that all 3 of you have done, as well as the cast and crew, because it takes a village to be able to create a quality show, to say the least. And I know, for Nestor, for Brooke, you have a live TV experience. Max, you're just jumping into it now. Congratulations on the SEALs show. Let's welcome. But one thing I brought up before you 3 came out was the aspect of bringing to life material that a lot of people never thought would be possible. You look at The Dark Tower recently, as well as Watchmen. Those were things that no one ever thought. Same thing with the aspect of the origins of Norman Bates. Whoever would like to answer it first, it's for all 3 of you. Going into it, being cast for it, is that undermined at all, that you're going to bring something that people absolutely love and respect with Hitchcock's work and add a new dynamic? Who would like to answer?
Well, I was just going to say I was late as a viewer to the show because I was anxious that I didn't know how they were going to do it, because Psycho's a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to mess with it,
Right.
So lucky for me, there were 4 solid seasons, so I knew it was, it was easy for me to jump in, but I'm sure you feel like a responsibility too, a little bit.
Yeah, but I find it hard to jump in usually on a moving train because it's, and you were amazing. You came in. The weirdest thing for me when you came in is because I had to direct you. That was the first time that I think we worked together, and not only did I have to direct you, I had to direct you in the office that used to be mine. This looks really different, the decor is different, and you've got the uniform. And I was like, part of me was a little angry.
You would say things like, it usually works best if you sit over here.
You might want to get on a glass of water, right? I know, Norm. No, you were amazing, and that's really hard to do, to come into a moving train and to make it your own so quickly, and it was just seamless. You were amazing.
Question for you, Max, do you have anything you want to add?
I think, in the beginning, definitely like what you're talking about was, I think, a bit of a concern for me. I remember getting the script and kind of going like, is this something that, is this like a smart thing to do, or is this not? But obviously, Carrie Earn and Carlton Hughes and kind of everybody involved with the project is, from the beginning, the ground up,
were, they had like, you know, such a game plan from the beginning, and they're just, I mean, they're so smart, and we're so focused on what their plan was, and executing that plan, you know, all the way through, and thankfully we had them sort of as our leaders, and then obviously, you know, thankful, you know, that all of you, you know, liked the show and were excited about it from the beginning. But yeah, I think what Nestor was just talking about also, when Brooke came on, the same thing. Yeah, I mean, like, not only I think it's hard to like just jump onto a show where like obviously we were already like a tight knit like family and everybody is like so close, and then come into that environment, but then also to have to be like directed by like two of the actors who are like, and that was the first day that I worked with you.
Totally.
That was like, I think that might have been.
It was my first day.
Yeah,
on
it was
the
your first
porch
day.
With
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, but I'm sad, you know, that you weren't there for more seasons. But I mean, obviously the character came in late, but you know, I wish we could have done more.
Yeah, I felt like I finally got on a great show, and like now it's over. But I think it's great that it ended before. It felt like it was.
Yeah,
it should have. So, as a fan, I say that.
As a fan, you know what? That's one thing with the seasons. 10 episodes per season, kind of unusual. But with the way cable TV has changed so much, you know, you got split seasons now. You have less of a show order for it. Is for to follow up on what you're saying, is 10 episodes enough per season, especially for Matt and Nestor after Brooke's done? Answer that, because that can be very constricting, I would think, on storylines. Go ahead, Brooke, first up to you.
I don't like it as a fan. I want more.
Damn right.
You know, but it can be nice when you're acting to only do 10, and especially if you have to leave your family and go out of town and all that. But I know that with a lot of things I watch, you know, I get to the 10th and I'm like, what? Now I have to wait. Maybe that's good. It's good to wait.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of just like experiencing that now with SEAL Team. Like, you know, they're talking like 22 a season. I'm like, oh wow. So like in 2 seasons, we'll do like almost as many episodes as we did in 5 years at Bates Motel. Well, that's a lot. How many months of the year do we shoot? Like, yeah, 10 months. Oh my gosh. Okay. But the 10 episode thing was, yeah, it felt like there were times, you know, when it felt like it was right, but then there were also times where it felt like it wasn't enough. And I think that all of us probably, like, if we could have found a way to extend the last season into 2, I think all of us would have been on board to doing that. But I think, you know, the writers were pretty set in their the arc they had for the show, and that was that.
Yeah, it's really true. Without spoiling it for those who have watched season 5, yeah, the writers, Carrie Aaron and Carlton and the whole writing team really moved the story quickly. So typically what they did in 10 episodes, most shows would do over 22. So, and I was surprised every time I read a script, I was like, wow, that gets resolved very quickly, and we're on to something really, you know. And it's sort of the pace I think that the viewer is now accustomed to. It's a 10 episode arc, which really means pushing the story. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I felt like I could have done, you know, maybe a 13 episode arc. At least those 3 more would give you a bit more. And there was talk of it at one point, but then they settled on the 10. But I'm curious to see what you guys thought. If you thought 10 a year was enough?
Do we think 10 was enough, or do we want more? Let's hear it. Yeah, there you go. Well said.
Let's do more.
Let's do more. There you go. But you know what? It's funny with the 10 episode slate every season, especially with the character of Dylan. He seems to accidentally kill a lot of people, and a lot of people seem to die under his watch, especially in the early seasons with him. Questions. We got one. All right. Let's go out to Batman over here. Come on, Batman. I'm coming around, Batman. Hold on. I'm getting old, Batman. Watch out. Oh, excuse me, sir. Thank you. All right, Batman, go ahead.
Okay. This is for Max and Nestor. When you signed on, did you know ultimately where your character was going to end up, or were you kept in the dark as much as we were? And was there any particular time when you said, "Whoa, I wasn't expecting this at all"?
I did not know. In fact, they told me nothing of oh yeah, we're gonna, Norman's gonna have a brother, so we want you to come in and play his brother. And it's like really great because he, is sort of like the outcast of the family and sort of the audience's window into this awkward relationship, yada, yada, yada. Well, there was no sort of, it was like, hey, you're signing on to 6 years. And there was no talk of what I ended up hearing later on down the road from the writer, who one day was spilling to me in a voicemail when she was getting dailies, and this is like an episode, or season 3 maybe, or I think it was season 3, and she was getting dailies, and she left me this like 2-minute long message where she went on and she said, Max, she was like, I just have to say, I'm just like so happy that like you're in the show, and every time the dailies come in, I'm so thankful that you did it and that you're a part of it and you're such a huge element, and just to think that like we were gonna kill you in the first season. I'm listening to the voicemail, hey, hold on a second. Let me rewind that. And I listened again, like, she said they're gonna kill me in the first season. And of course, when they're signing your deal, there's no like, oh, by the way, we might kill you, in 8 episodes. It's like, hey, do you want to do 5 years of TV? And so that was a bit shocking, but I think, yeah, to see where the character went from considering at one point in time, before we started filming, they were going to kill me, yeah, definitely. I had no idea what to expect from that. Like, well, here we go. Take one episode at a time.
We have another question right here.
Thanks for coming out, guys. From the writing, the acting, the show's phenomenal. You guys are phenomenal at it, but in particular, I think Freddie Highmore's performance from the beginning of the show to the end of the show is some of the best acting that I've seen on TV, without a doubt. Can you guys to go deeper into like working with him and what his process is, or any kind of memories you have?
Freddie?
Yes, sir.
Freddie, yes.
Well, there's a reason why he's not here. We don't let him out.
We finally committed.
Yeah. We keep him shackled up in the back. There's no process. There's just Freddie. You want to? That's for you.
We have that on video.
Want to kill Freddie, but lightly, no. Yeah, Freddie's incredible. He's, to think he's from London, he was, and then you find these things out, as, the guy speaks Arabic, Spanish, he went to Cambridge, and I don't know how many degrees he got. He was chess champion at the age of 10 in England. At his age, it's something. These are the things we found out. And then on top of it,
He's James Bond.
He's James Bond. Exactly. So he, and his process was, he's a studious guy. He would be home where everyone would go out for dinners, whatever, the first year at least, and really just working on his material, studying, working on his accent, because he had to really sort of master that, especially early on. And then, he'd love to talk to the directors a lot. So when we directed, I know he talked to you as well, about what he wanted to do within the episode. So he was really conscious of sort of his arc within each episode. But yeah, and then he ended up writing on the show and directing himself, which is pretty extraordinary. So we hate him. He's awesome.
We have another question back here.
Hi, this is a question towards Max. What did you think of Dylan and Norma's relationship throughout the seasons?
It was like, they had such a crazy, really like a really terrible relationship for the most part. And it was hard because there were times, like Vera is like the sweetest woman on the planet, and so then there's times when I have to be like a complete jerk to her, and that's most of the time. And I wish selfishly that we had more like heartfelt scenes together, and those were a lot of fun. But getting to act alongside Vera is incredible. She's such an amazing actress, and every time when you're in a scene with her, it doesn't feel like acting. And so it's honestly like just all of my scenes were so much fun. So every time I had a scene, I just look forward to it. But their relationship was a weird and a hard one, and I think that I mean, that was obviously one of the big contributing factors to Dylan's messed up life, and outside of his father and his brother and killing all the people in season 2 and everything else that happened. But yeah, it was wacky.
Hey, you know what, Nestor, can you continue on and talk about your relationship with Norma and how that was?
Yeah, that was frustrating. Not dissimilar to yours. Although, you know, it's interesting you're saying that the tables turned and she became a lot meaner to you towards the end. Yeah, like, it actually was a great piece of writing and obviously a great piece of acting on yours part. But yet, I love that flip on your relationship. Yeah, for us, for Norman and Romero, it was, it's interesting. That was something Carlton alluded to in the beginning, and you never know how these things pan out. He said, when he asked me to join the show at the beginning, he said, hey, come to the show, and you know, initially your character isn't in it too much, but by the end of season 1, they'll do something pivotal that will sort of connect him with Norma. He goes, yeah, and if things work out with you too, you know, maybe we'll pair you up, you know. So we didn't know. So you know, thankfully things did sort of, we started to work off each other, and they felt like it connected enough, and then they explored it. And but yeah, it was turbulent, and it was awful and wonderful, and all of those things, and it was really painful. Especially, I don't want to ruin it for those who haven't watched season 4, but the very end of season 4 was again, we're talking about a 10-episode arc. It was
right.
Like, they just put us together, and I was like, oh my God, you're killing me here. You know, these characters that you sort of fall in love with are now being ripped apart. That was pretty rough.
I love how Romero is such the straight guy with her. I mean, it's that side of her that you see because she's such a lovely character and she's got so much energy, so much going on. And then you're standing there, especially in the first few seasons, and you're just that straight man, and you're sitting there going, "This is the reality of it. Okay, you can't do this, Norma." And it's wonderful to see the transition into season 4. And you're right, it is too short of a amount of episodes. One thing that Bates Motel does a tremendous job on is empowering female characters. Wacky at times, definitely. But Brooke, I'll throw it over to you first. Can you talk about, as a fan as well as being a cast member, seeing some of these characters, these women written so well that drive the show?
Well, I mean, I did the same thing. I binged it, really. I watched the first and second pretty close together. And Vera blew me away. I mean, I was just, and the comedy, I mean, it was just, and I remember I came out of my bedroom where I'd been watching them, and I said, you know, to my 14-year-old, honey, if you kill anyone, I promise I'll take care of it, okay? I found it so moving, what, you know, as a parent too, literally, like, you know, I mean, what do you do if your kid is mentally ill? I mean, she tried to get help, you know? And it wasn't, I mean, it was so, I liked all the complexities. I mean, what a great character Norma was. And then I love that Sheriff Green was a woman too. But again, like you guys were saying, I had so much fun with Freddie that then when it turned pretty quick, you know? So I thought, oh, now I don't get to have these weird, quirky scenes with him, you know?
Awkward, to say the least.
Yeah, I won't say anymore, sorry.
You know what, Max, can I follow Olivia Cook? Can you talk about what Emma brought to there? Because that's another character that went through an extraordinary change and really very positive and pivotal.
Jail anyway. So that changed when Freddie got the writer. No, I mean, it did change. Suddenly I go, Freddie, why did it change? You've been in the writer's room. He goes, I had nothing to do with it. I promised you. And so I really want to kill him now. But no, I think the writers did. It was a good call, and even with my demise, I think I was. It made sense. So anyway, please.
Well, I can't say anything because you haven't seen it, but you killed them. I was a wreck. I was a wreck, and I felt very satisfied too as a fan. So, and I was anxious about that going into it because I wasn't sure what it was going to be, but pretty great writers.
You know what, if I may ask, because looking at the aspect of the finale changing, Also other aspects of season 5, including how they handled the shower scene. One of the most iconic scenes that you're ever gonna do. They just did a documentary, 7852, where they brought together all these filmmaking minds just to dissect that scene alone. Was that, and for any of you that are up there, was that something for you that you were surprised how they handled that scene? I'm sure everyone's seen here as well as up there, Psycho. Anyone will answer?
Yeah, I was concerned, I think Freddie was too. When we read it, we're like, oh, people are not gonna dig this. And I directed the episode prior to that, to introduce Marion Crane. And Phil Abraham, who did a brilliant job of directing that particular episode, that shower scene. I asked him, I go, we had Rihanna for 5 days. She had to shoot almost 35 to 40 pages, which is a lot for any actor, and any actor who doesn't have much of an acting background on top of that. So we had her for 5 days. We had split time with her, and I said, where are you going to spend most of your time? He goes, in the shower. I go, really? He goes, that's the scene. That's the iconic scene. He goes, the other stuff I'll have to find the time, but he goes, I want to take my time with it. I love the twist. I think it really worked. And I think that's one of the great things about the writing is that you think they're going to go zig, they go zag. You know, it just, you know, it really kept you guessing, So.
It was a nice twist in terms of another strong woman, too.
Right.
So.
All right, we have a question back here.
Thank you very much. So first I want to congratulate Max. I know you're going to be back again with national television this fall, so congratulations for the Navy SEAL show that's coming up. So I wanted to ask, so in general, were there any kind of maybe some scenes or maybe something was coming along when you guys got the script and you were seeing over the seasons and you were like, hey, I want to change something. Did you guys have any, you know, opportunity to change something in a scene and, you know, and say, oh, I want to go ahead and add this scene in there?
Yeah, I think, thank you. I think the writers were so open to, you know, our input and thoughts on scenes. I mean, obviously, you know, they had such a great plan and it was such great writing in general, but they were always open to dialogue changes, you know, to like all sorts of things. And I think that, you know, it's kind of rare that you actually find writers who are so open to that because it's hard. I think a lot of writers are very attached to their material and to their words, and you know, they sort of, they can take it kind of, you know, in a hard way when you tell them like, hey, I think this, you know, I'd rather say the line like this because they're set. And so we were really fortunate, you know, Carrie, Erin really oversaw all that, and we were really fortunate to have her and have her be so open-minded to our thoughts. And because I think that she also knew that it wasn't just because we didn't like how things sounded, but like we, you know, we honestly like cared about the outcome of the show and the episodes, and she knew that like we were really putting our heart into what we were doing, and if we, you know, thought that something should be a certain way, it's because we really believed it.
Did you find that work as well?
Yeah.
Did you talk to Carrie?
Yeah, I mean, she's incredible. I'm so impressed by her. I mean, a lot of times when I work now, I don't know about you, there's a lot of, I don't mean to diss younger actors, but I've worked with a lot of them who feel like they can just change the words whenever they want or put it into their own words or whatever, but I don't think that's the job. I think we're supposed to, you know, become someone else and therefore say those words, right? So, yeah, but they were very open, and I would work with them anytime again. I'm very impressed by Carrie.
I've never been on a set quite like that. Just like you, I don't know how many pitches of stories that Carrie had to suffer through for me. But I would go in every summer, you know, in between the hiatus and say, you mind if I come in? I have some ideas. And I've never ever been with a writer who was more open to hearing it. And she may not incorporate all of it, but certainly open to it. And often she would. We'd kick around suggestions, and she would be really. Oh, she goes, oh, that's interesting. Maybe and she'd do a spin on it or something. But it was an extremely collaborative set. And in no show I've ever been where 3 actors who are regulars on it get to direct. And I've never heard of that.
And not only that, and Esther, you know, you directed 2 out of 3 pivotal episodes. You know, really with Marion being introduced, I mean, you see a lot of aspects through the eyes of the performers come through in those episodes, and they're very well done, if I may say so. Same thing for you, Max. The aspect that you guys get to do direct in season 5, it makes an impact that they're willing to show the trust they have.
I don't know what they were thinking, but I thank them for it. No, and it's opened up the door for all of us to continue to do that. But the level of trust they had in us, I've never seen before. We're really lucky.
Yeah, you know what, Max, can I ask you a question? Because it seems that Bates Motel recruited from Sons of Anarchy. You brought in Kenny Johnson, you brought in Ryan, I wish Ryan was out here right now, you brought in Ryan Hurst. And Max, can you talk about the comedy aspect of it? Because Chick, I gotta tell you, season 5, I see some people clapping, he just adds that comedic release so well. And for a guy who's so serious all the time with his image and characters, it's just amazing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the show like is so wacky and out there that when some of these actors get to see, you know, parts come up, I think that they're excited, and then they know that they can kind of really like create a character that's different and quirky, you know. And I think that Ryan saw an opportunity, and I don't think it was really even in the material. I think that like so much of that was really what Ryan wanted to bring to the character, and he had ideas and thoughts on everything every day. I mean, you know, some of them, you know, we had to tone back at times, but really like his imagination, and he's such a fantastic actor that obviously like the guy can kind of do anything and sort of play any sort of genre. And so you know, I think that getting him to play this quirky sort of comedic but not trying to be comedic character was I mean, I think it was like intriguing to him, you know. But yeah, I mean, we couldn't get everybody from Sons on.
He's like a big mountain Buddha, the way that he walks around with all that.
Dude, he's just giant.
He is a giant. We have a question right here.
I was just going to say one thing about Ryan is that just to give you a sense of how he got into his role, he would pretty much bring his own wardrobe in and sort of gently insist on potentially using it. And you know, they would work with it. Then he would, while they lit the scene, he would meditate on his wardrobe for 45 minutes to get into his role. And when you got on set, you're like, I get that meditation, I feel it. And it was, yeah, he was really committed. It was great to have him on the show.
I'm friends with Mark Boone Jr., and he was on Sons of Anarchy, and I believe that Ryan has said he based the character on Boone. I was lucky enough to show Boone Ryan playing Boone as Chick. And I took a picture of his face when he was watching it, and his girlfriend too. Oh my God, she was like, "Oh, he's channeling you." I mean, amazing.
Awesome.
I'm so in awe with the power of filmmaking, the raw nature of it. So I want to say I respect the actors that will step behind the camera and actually direct. That's awesome. Can you talk about, is it easier or harder to step into that role on set where you're just a performer? I don't mean to say just a performer, but where you're the director for that given episode and you have to manage your whole crew and all the departments. Can you talk, is it easier or harder to step into that role?
So I think the one thing that was easier about stepping into the role as director was the fact that, you know, this was like a show that we were so comfortable with, and also, you know, the look of the show in general. But then beyond that, like the crew and the cast, like everybody, we had such a rapport with everyone that it was like just like a family. So it wasn't like, you know, a lot of television directors have to go and they walk onto a set with a close-knit group of people and have to step in and sort of, you know, lead the charge. And I think that can be sort of overwhelming. And so I think that it was like the most conducive environment to like do that in. But that being said, directing is a lot of work. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a tremendous amount of work. I remember like in my first couple of days,
you know, and in the 5th season also we didn't have a producing director in the 5th season. So they kind of just turned us loose, which is also kind of mind-blowing. And depending on, you know, the show or who you're working with, director of photography, like the DP can, you know, some of them are much more hands-on with the camera stuff, and some of them are not. And, you know, on Bates, we had a fantastic DP, but his primary focus a lot of the time is just the overall look of the show and the picture. And so he focuses more on the lighting and the scene, and not so much on the camera work itself. And so I was sort of blown away by, I thought there would be a little bit more of a hand-holding to it. And then I was sort of blown away by, they were like, yeah, go ahead. What do you want to do? Okay. We're gonna see if I actually know what I'm talking about here. And also, you know, so that was kind of interesting, you know, and I like really had to sort of just like go with my gut on different, you know, shots and say, hey, I guess like this is how I'm gonna shoot the scene, and I think this is how, you know, it's all gonna work out, and we'll see when I go to edit it if it does, and maybe it won't, and then be like, whoa, that was a big mistake. Great job, Max. We have to reshoot the episode. But the other thing was just like all the tiny details that go into being director. You know, that like on the first day when I showed up, and I had the production designer like coming up to me and asking me the questions about like, you know, what color, you know, do you want the bottle to be, you know, turned this way, or do you want it to be turned this way? I'm like, I don't know, I didn't think about that yet, you know. And he's like, okay, we'll get back to me. And so there were so many little questions about these tiny little details that you sort of think just kind of get handled, and then everybody wants your opinion on it, and you're like, wow, I guess I really get to. So, you know, that being said, like, I loved it. Like, I loved being able to kind of control, like, you know, the look of the episode to a certain extent, and sort of have like my, you know, stamp on it. But it's a tremendous amount of work though. It's exhausting.
Max was awesome. You were amazing. And one of the things Max did after, instead of saying cut, you know, say action, you did a scene, you yell cut, he would say thank you. And it was genius. Sweet. And it was that kind of environment you had. I didn't have it, he did. I was like, that sucked. No. I hated it. No, Max it was really sweet because it set the tone for like, first of all, gratitude, which is amazing. And then this sort of gentle, like, oh, you know what? Even if you didn't feel it was good, thank you for taking a shot. It was all of it. So you're natural, you're great, and the camera work is beautiful. And so, but I agree with Max. It's a lot of work. And I don't know how you. I slept about 2-3 hours a night when you're directing, because the stress and you're thinking I'm going to mess this up. You know, you have a million questions to answer. You have so much to prepare for each scene. You know, locations to scout, casting, and every element of it. Everyone's looking to you, and you're like, I've barely ever done this. I've done it twice. Why are
And the hard thing too is like you're talking about scouting locations. Like you don't get to go out and hop in a van and cruise down the street and go, I want to shoot there. It's like they go and they show you, like, hey, we have this and we have this. Which one do you want to shoot at? You're kind of like, I really hate both of them. So let me decide which one I hate less and try and make it look cooler. And so there's like sort of those compromises that you're kind of also making. You know, I mean, I think those sort of come more with television. I think on, you know, on movies, you have a little more power to be like, hey, we're gonna go shoot here. And so those are kind of interesting too. Like those, you know, you don't always realize that when you're watching a show. Like, you know, oh, they didn't have a whole lot of options to pick from. Like this is what they had to work with, and they had to figure out how to make it work. But it's really amazing. It really makes me admire the guys who are like really amazing at it and make it look so effortless, because it's crazy.
Absolutely. And the other difference is, you were talking about the difference between being in front and behind is, well, the tricky thing for me those first few times I was in the episodes that I directed was going from a myopic view of the show, where it's just, you're looking at the prism of your own character, to a mission, you know, view of the show where you're like, you gotta look at everyone's point of view. You know, and even the camera, like, if you're gonna favor this actor because the scene is his or her scene, well, then you got to position the camera this way a little bit more, give them a different bit of coverage. You're constantly thinking about that, but if you're acting in it, you're like, it's all about me and my point. So it was weird switching hats. That was a tricky thing to do.
You know what? All the different changes, all the different tweaks being directed on the set for it. The Bates Motel, the house, it changes with the lighting and the shadows, depends on the emotions, but can three of you talk about being on the set for that and the scope of that property? Because just like you're on the Bates, it might be even more infamous than him when it comes to it. Can you talk about the Bates Motel and what that impacted you guys?
I never got past the fangirl stage. I never did. I was like, oh my God, there's the house. And then to go to the studio and see that it's, I mean, I totally bought it as a real house, you know? And then when I went there and I was like, I can't believe, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but I was like, I really thought it was, I thought this was actually in the house. I mean, I never got over that. I never did. And guess what? When you walk into those hotel rooms, motel rooms, there's nothing there. There's like not even a wall sometimes, or you know, I mean.
Two of them were dressed, yeah.
Yeah.
They're really clean. They're so clean. They're right. Good, guys. What else? Nestor, how about you with the hotel?
The sets are amazing. I'll just give you a little bit of trivia. The motel and the house without the roof. We didn't have the roof until the second season. They CGI'd that in the first season. But all of that was built on landfill. And it was an hour and a half out of Vancouver in a border town called Aldergrove. And we'd travel an hour and a half every day to shoot there. And it was built in 5 weeks. The whole motel, I mean, the production team, Mark Freeborn did Breaking Bad, did our show. He and his team are unbelievable. I mean, just genius talents and incredibly hardworking. So, but yeah, I'm like you, Brooke. I couldn't get enough of that. The set, you walk on that set, you don't have to prepare. You're in the world because you had the gray Vancouver skies. When they put the roof on too, it was like, wow, this is creepy. You're right in there. So it was pretty spectacular. And then they tore it down just when we finished shooting. They were going to keep it at one point as like a museum, and then they changed their minds.
Max, anything from you on it?
What's that?
Retaining-
On the subject?
I
was like, is there anything from me on what? Is there anything from me on the house?
On the house.
Yeah, no, I think that, it really, like, what was kind of funny is, like, by the end of the show, certainly Freddie was totally attached to everything. I mean, he was really, like, personally attached to it all. And I even felt like, the inside of the house was like, I mean, you go, like, we'd walk on a set, and it was like being, like, in a second home. Like, we'd go, like, kick our shoes off and sit on the couch and hang out and, like, talk. And, but I think, a lot of that is a testament to Mark Freeborn, and how complete his scenes feel. I mean, sometimes you watch shows and there's a lot of fake walls and the ceiling is gone or whatever, and everything was complete. And so from a point of view of like a director and shooting the thing, it makes it so amazing because you can show everything. It's not like, the actors are here and we can show like these two corners because that's all there is and everything else is fake. Like inside the house, I mean, you can take the camera and move it anywhere and you can shoot low and see the ceiling and the ceilings in there. It's not just a bunch of lights on the stage. Like there's all these sort of things you don't really see when you're watching the show. I really like every time I walked on the set was like I was just amazed. But also again, like they said, like the exterior of the house was like, I mean, it was impressive seeing it for sure.
Time has gone really, really fast. This is our last question right here.
Okay. For each of you, what is your process for memorizing lines?
Read them and pray for the best. That's right. It's interesting. With good writing, it makes it easier. There's no question about it. So when with good writing, things make sense for one thing. They're usually driven by an emotion. And when things are driven by emotion, it's easier to connect. But for me, typically, it's just trying to make it as specific as I can. So if I have a whole speech to give, it's just trying to go through everything and say, okay, why am I saying this specifically? Why that word? And that helps me remember everything.
And also, when it's film or TV, I find that it's tied to, there's like a muscle memory thing that happens too. So once you've done it, you're like, I'm over here. And but if the writing's good, then it makes sense, right? Because you're just like, okay, he just asked me this, so I'm going to answer this. And it's when it's not good that it's a lot harder.
When it's not good, or like Nestor was saying, the really long monologues are hard. When you're not speaking to someone and you're speaking at them, it gets much more difficult. You know, if you're just speaking to a group of people and you have this long, massive monologue and you have to address everyone, that's when it gets sort of complicated. But when, you know, because then you're trying to remember what you're saying rather than being in a scene with someone and just being present. And like they said, like it doesn't become, you know, if the writing's good, they're your own words, so that one, they're your character's words, and it's not like you're thinking about anything.
And just quickly, you had quite a few monologues. I remember the scene I had to shoot with you and Emma and Olivia, and then you know, kind of recap essentially why you didn't tell her about the earring in that scene. So you had quite a few of those, and Vera had them all the time. And I remember directing her, and one thing Vera did really well with monologues, because those are the hardest to remember. It's just this much, you know, material, and you have not even that day sometimes to memorize it. Is she would just if she forgot some of it, she would just relax. Instead of tense up and think, oh, I'm missing it, the crew is waiting for me, she would just go, turn like jello, which is genius, because I thought, oh wow, you can't remember anything when you're stressed. So she's just trying to relax, and then she would wait, and it would come to her, and the good thing about TV and film is that it's not staged. You can just pick it up and they'll edit around it, so that's one thing I learned from her.
That was an amazing takeaway for me too, because, you know, it is your instinct to go, oh fuck, it's wrong, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. And I saw her, especially, I don't want to give anything away, but there was the one that Freddie directed, where in the interrogation, and she had like 2 pages.
Yes.
And she would just go like, and then she'd look down. A couple times she kept the script there, and then she would just, so.
For any actor, it's good.
Let me finish with this question. How crucial was season 5? Because it seems it was a completely different turn from everything that had happened. You closed up a lot of storylines, but yet you have a different tone for a lot of the characters. Romero's on the run. Dylan has found happiness, where at the first time we see him opening the door, he looks like he's a goth kid at the beginning. We have a new sheriff in town. It's a lot of change. So how crucial was season 5? What did that bring? Whoever would like to close it out.
I think it was crucial for, like you mentioned, we all had amazing arcs. You know, even within your season 5, you had a tremendous arc. And that's a tribute again to the great writing. You know, for the character to have the experiences we had in 50 episodes and some, you know, in 10 episodes is extraordinary. So I think, season 5 is huge. Also, there's a time lapse. Spoiler alert: 2 years between season 4 and 5. Yeah, almost 2 years. So that bought us a lot of history that we can work with. Oh, what happened in those 2 years that we're not going to see? So again, really smart writing. And before I close, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys, because we didn't get to do the show without you. And because of a lot of you are so active on social media, because of that, we got to do the 50 episodes. So I just want to say thank you guys.
Anyone else up here about the crucial aspect of season 5? Anyone else? No? Oh, yeah.
Just as a fan, I wanted to make sure it was done right, you know? And I hope everybody was happy. I think everybody was happy.
Yeah. Real quick, so what's coming up next? What are you working on, so we know? Right.
I might be doing something, but I don't know yet.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, good.
I'm doing a show called SEAL Team on CBS. September 27th. Wednesday night at 9.
I'll be like, and I'm going to be directing Freddie in 2 weeks on The Good Doctor, so I'm going
Matt, Nestor,
thank you guys.
Cast from Bates Motel.